My daughter must have forgotten to hang up her phone that night. 1 second I was about to hang up myself, the next I was listening to words that cracked something deep inside me. It's time for him to go to a nursing home. He's a burden. That's what I heard, my own flesh and blood talking about me like I was an old lawnmower she didn't know what to do with. I didn't say a word, but right then, something inside me shifted. A week later, I sold my house for $960,000. When they got back from their business trip, they were all smiles, until they tried to unlock the front door and realized the keys didn't fit. There was a note waiting on the doorstep. They read it, and the smiles vanished. Their voices turned into sharp, panicked screams. That's when I knew, they weren't going to let this go. This was only the opening move. Before we go any further, the folks on YouTube would be telling you to subscribe and drop a comment about where you're listening from. But me? I'll just take you back to the moment it all began. The phone rang while I was scraping the last bit of meatloaf from my plate, Susan's recipe. Mine never came out quite right without her hands on it, but I still made it now and then, just to feel close to her. I glanced at the caller ID and couldn't help but smile. Megan. Dad, how are you holding up? She asked, her voice carrying that same gentle warmth that always made my chest ache in equal parts love and loneliness. I settled into Susan's old recliner, the leather soft and shiny from all the years she spent curled up there with a book. Oh, you know me, sweetheart, I said. Just had dinner, about to put on the news. I didn't tell her it was leftovers from 3 days ago, or that I'd spent the better part of an hour just staring at Susan's photo on the mantel. Are you eating enough? You know you can order groceries online now. I showed you the app. I'm eating fine, I told her, though I added, had a little scare yesterday, forgot to turn off the burner under my coffee pot. Lucky I smelled it burning from the living room. There was a pause. I could picture her frowning, that same little crease between her brows Susan used to get. Dad, maybe we should think about someone checking in on you more regularly. Tyler thinks I'm doing fine, I said, trying to move things along. So, how's your trip? You're in Phoenix, right? Yes. Conference wraps tomorrow. Tyler's been meeting with clients while I sit through hours of digital marketing talks, she said with a forced little laugh. Anyway, Dad, I should go. Tyler and I have dinner with some investors. All right, sweetheart. I love you. Love you too, Dad. Take care of yourself, okay? I heard the click of the call ending, or so I thought. Then there was some rustling, like her phone was bouncing around in her purse. And that's when I heard them. Tyler, you see how he's slipping? Megan's voice, but colder now, stripped of the warmth I just heard. He forgot to turn off the stove yesterday. What if he burns the place down? I froze, my hand locked around the receiver. It's time for a nursing home, Tyler's voice cut in, flat and businesslike. He's a good man, but he's becoming a burden. The house is worth nearly $1 million now. With Denver's market, we could get $900,000 easy, Megan said, her tone like she was running numbers in her head. Tyler sounded pleased. We sell, put him in somewhere decent, not too pricey, and we finally buy that place in Boulder with the mountain view. Then Megan laughed. Actually laughed. God, Tyler, you should have seen him tonight. So grateful just to hear from me. He has no idea what's coming. The longer we wait, the more confused he'll get. We should move before he stops trusting us completely. The phone slipped from my fingers and clattered onto the hardwood Susan and I had laid together 23 years ago. I could still remember every nail, every board, how we dreamed about the future while building it. I sat there in the heavy silence, staring at Susan's photograph. Her eyes seemed to lock on mine, maybe with disappointment, maybe with warning, or maybe just with that sad knowing you see in someone who's already left this life. The grandfather clock in the hallway, Susan's gift for our 15th anniversary, ticked away into the dark. Outside, the first spring crickets were starting up in the garden she'd planted, the one I still cared for. Something cold settled in my chest. They thought I was a burden. They thought I was helpless. They were already spending my money, already designing their new life with me buried in the ground. But I wasn't dead yet. And I was a hell of a lot sharper than they realized. I don't know how long I sat there before I turned on the lamp. The light spilled across the room we'd furnished slowly, piece by piece, over the years. The burgundy sofa where Megan had done her homework. The coffee table I'd built in the garage, sanding it smooth while she played at my feet. I went into the kitchen and opened the drawer where I kept old paperwork. My fingers went straight to the folder I wanted, 20 years of financial records I'd never thrown away because Susan always said, "You never know when you might need them." I pulled out the University of Colorado tuition receipts, $48,000 over 4 years. I remembered those double shifts, coming home with concrete dust in my hair and plaster under my nails, and Susan waiting with coffee, rubbing my shoulders while I paid bills at this very table. "Jack, you're working yourself into the ground," Susan had told me one night while I sat at the kitchen table, trying to figure out how we could pay for Megan's spring semester. "She deserves better than we had, Susan," I'd said. "She's smart enough to make something of herself." Susan kissed the top of my head. "Just don't give her so much that she forgets to be grateful." I should have listened. God, I should have listened. In that folder were the wedding receipts too, $32,000 for one day. I'd told Megan we could swing 5, maybe 8 if we pinched every penny, but she cried, really cried, about wanting her dream wedding. So I worked weekends for 6 months laying hardwood floors for a buddy's contracting company, paid under the table. "Daddy, you're the best father in the world," she whispered during our dance, her head resting on my shoulder, her wedding dress brushing against my rented tux. I'll never forget this. But she did. She forgot who co-signed for her first car when her credit was too thin to stand on its own. She forgot who called in favors to get her that marketing job after she'd spent 8 months unemployed post-graduation. I kept flipping through papers until I found the bank statements from 2 years ago, right after Tyler lost his job as a financial advisor for reasons I never did get a straight answer on. They'd moved in, just until Tyler got back on his feet. I didn't ask for rent. I paid the higher utility bills. I bought groceries for 3 instead of 1 lonely widower. Tyler would pat my shoulder and say I was the most generous man in Colorado. Megan would hug me and promise, "Dad, we'll pay you back when we get on our feet." They'd been on their feet for over a year now, good jobs, better pay than I'd ever seen in my working life, but there'd been no talk of moving out, no mention of paying me back. I'd even paid for their anniversary dinner last month, $200 at a downtown steakhouse because Tyler said they deserved to celebrate. And when his BMW needed a new transmission, I covered the $3,000 bill that drained my emergency fund. Jack's like a father to me, I overheard him telling friends at their last barbecue, his arms slung around my shoulders. I'm so lucky I married into this family. And you know what? I'd been proud. Proud to be the generous father-in-law who'd do whatever it took to take care of his own. I climbed the stairs to the bedroom Susan and I had shared, unchanged for 2 years. Her jewelry box still sat on the dresser. Her reading glasses were folded neatly beside the lamp. From the bottom drawer, I pulled out our original house deed. Jack and Susan Thompson, purchased 2001. No liens, no co-signers, no strings attached. And now, after Susan was gone, my name alone. Standing in that room, the room where Susan spent her last days, surrounded by everything we'd built together, something shifted inside me. The hurt was still sharp, but under it, something harder was taking shape. They wanted to stick me in a home and sell off my life's work. They thought I was too old, too out of it, too grateful for their scraps of attention to put up a fight. I looked at Susan's photo on the nightstand, hearing her voice from all those years ago, "Don't give her so much that she forgets to be grateful." Well, Susan, I thought, our daughter's forgotten. But she's about to remember who her father really is. I walked to my office and pulled out the business card I'd kept for 3 years. Scott Miller, real estate attorney. Susan had made me meet with him after her diagnosis, just to have our affairs in order. Looked like it was time for another visit. The next morning, I walked through my house like I was seeing it for the first time, not as my home, but the way Megan and Tyler must see it: square footage, market value, liquid assets. In the kitchen, I ran my hand along the granite countertop I'd installed myself, working by lamplight after long days at the job because we couldn't afford a contractor. Susan had picked that pattern, speckled gray with gold veins that caught the morning light just so. She'd made coffee here every morning for 16 years until the cancer took her strength. Right there, I could still picture Megan's first wobbly steps, from the fridge to Susan's waiting arms one Christmas morning. We both cried. Susan scooped her up, spinning in a circle while I scrambled for the camera. "Our baby's walking, in the house we built for her," she'd whispered through her tears. The living room held 25 years of Christmas mornings. I could still see 7-year-old Megan's face lighting up when she saw the dollhouse I'd spent 3 months building in secret. Susan had sewn tiny curtains and made miniature furniture from scraps. "Daddy, it's just like our house," she'd squealed. And it was, right down to the little bay window in her bedroom. That bay window had cost me 6 months of overtime. Susan had spotted it in a magazine and fallen in love with the idea of reading there in the afternoons. I'd learned new cuts, measured and remeasured until my back ached from crouching over the frame. "Jack, we can't afford this," she'd worried. "You want it? You'll have it," I told her. "I'll make it work." I went upstairs to Megan's old room, still painted soft yellow, still covered in photos of high school friends and college memories. This was the room where I'd rocked her through colicky nights as a baby, where Susan and I had helped her with algebra at the little white desk I'd built to fit perfectly under the window. The master bedroom was the hardest to walk into. Susan's side of the bed still had her water glass. Her bookmark was still tucked at page 247 of the novel she'd never finish. I'd built the walk-in closets myself, tailored to her height, and her clothes still hung there, still carrying the faint scent of her perfume. This was the room where we'd planned our future, where we'd whispered our dreams for Megan, and where Susan had died with my hand in hers, the machines quietly counting down her last moments. "Promise me you won't let them take advantage of you," she'd said near the end, her voice no stronger than a breath. "You're too good, Jack. Too generous. Promise me you'll take care of yourself." I'd promised. But I hadn't kept it, had I? In my office, I found the folder Susan had made, construction photos from the spring of '99. Me, 25 years younger and 50 pounds stronger, laying the foundation. Me and my crew raising the frame. Susan, wearing a hard hat, smiling as she brought us lemonade, her belly just starting to show with Megan. The financial records from those years told a story the photos didn't. Second mortgage. Personal loan from my brother. Susan taking a part-time job with the school district just so we could cover the cost of materials. We'd eaten beans and rice for months. We drove cars that were held together with prayer and duct tape. But in the end, we'd built this place with our sweat, our sacrifice, and our love for each other and for the family we were raising. And now my daughter, the same little girl who'd taken her first steps in this kitchen, who'd run through the backyard I'd landscaped by hand, wanted to sell it all and tuck me away like I was some old end table that didn't fit the decor anymore. I pulled Scott Miller's business card from my desk drawer. The edges were worn from years of handling, but the number was still easy to read. Megan and Tyler thought they had me pegged, some half-confused old man who'd be grateful for whatever scraps of attention they tossed my way. They figured I'd just roll over and hand them my life's work without so much as a grumble. They were about to learn how wrong they were. I dialed Scott's number. Listened to the ring. My hands were steady as stone. Outside, the spring morning was bright and clear, the kind of day Susan would have loved. The kind of day that felt right for starting something new. Miller and Associates was on the second floor of a plain brick building over on Colfax. Not the kind of place that tried to impress big-shot corporate clients, more the kind of office that helped regular folks with real-life problems. I wore my best suit, charcoal gray, the one Susan had picked for her funeral, and showed up 15 minutes early. My hands trembled just a little when I signed in at the front desk. Scott Miller turned out to be younger than I'd expected, maybe mid-50s, with gray at the temples and the patient look of a man who'd heard every family horror story twice over. His office smelled like coffee and paper, lined with law books and photos of a wife, 2 teenagers, and a golden retriever, the kind of steady, normal life Susan and I had always tried to build. "Mr. Thompson, good to see you again," Scott said as he poured coffee from a little machine in the corner. "I remember you and Susan from a few years back. I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you," I said, surprised at how steady my voice sounded. "I need to talk about something delicate. About my daughter and son-in-law." Scott set his pen to a yellow pad. "I'm listening." So I told him everything, the phone call, the overheard conversation, their plans to sell my house and put me in a nursing home. He didn't flinch, but I caught a slight shake of his head when I mentioned their Boulder dream house. "Unfortunately, Mr. Thompson, this happens more often than you'd think," he said, leaning back in his chair. "Adult children sometimes believe they know what's best for their parents, especially when there's a valuable asset involved. But they can't actually do anything, legally, right?" I asked. "Let's start with the basics. Since your wife passed, the title is in your name alone." "That's right. Susan and I owned it together, and when she died, it transferred to me automatically." "Then legally," Scott said, "your daughter and son-in-law have no claim to your property. They can't sell it, can't put you in a care facility, can't touch your assets without your permission. The house belongs to you. Period." Relief washed over me, and right behind it, something sharper. "So if I wanted to sell it myself, you could have it on the market tomorrow. It's your property, your call." He looked up from his notes. "May I ask why you're thinking about selling?" I thought about Megan's laugh when she called me a burden. Tyler's cold voice running the math on my life. 25 years of blood and sweat reduced to a number on a real estate flyer. "They think I'm confused," I said quietly. "They think they can manage me like a piece of property." I set my coffee down. "Maybe it's time I showed them how wrong they are." Scott studied me for a moment. "Denver's market is hot right now. In your neighborhood, houses are selling in days, sometimes for cash, above asking. If you wanted to move fast, before your daughter and son-in-law get back from their trip, it's possible." "How fast?" "With the right buyer, we could close in a week. Maybe less." He leaned forward. "But this is a major decision, Mr. Thompson. Once you sell, there's no going back. I built that house with my own hands," I told him. "Every board, every nail, every detail. I know exactly what I'm doing." We spent the next hour covering the details: market value, cash buyer networks, legal steps. Scott said he could have the paperwork ready in 24 hours if I gave the word. "The consultation fee is $200, he said as I stood to leave. "If you move forward, it'll go toward my legal fees." I paid in cash. Felt clearer in my head than I had in months. As I walked to my truck in the sunshine, my phone buzzed. Megan's name lit up the screen. For the first time since hearing her betrayal, I smiled. 1 ring. 2 rings. 3. I could picture her in some Phoenix hotel lobby, checking her watch, wondering why her grateful old dad wasn't falling over himself to answer. Let her wonder. Let her make her plans. She had no idea what was coming. The call went to voicemail as I slid behind the wheel. Scott Miller's card was safe in my wallet, and a plan was taking shape, one that would remind my ungrateful daughter exactly who she was dealing with. I'd built my life from nothing once before. I could tear it down and build it again on my own terms. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the tremor in my hands was gone, replaced with something solid. Confidence. Scott Miller's words wouldn't stop rattling around in my head. It's your property, your decision. It was like someone had thrown open a window in my mind. 25 years of hesitation and second-guessing cleared out as fast as the morning fog burns off in the Denver sun. I had just slipped my key into the front door when the phone started up again. Through the kitchen window, I spotted it vibrating on the counter where I'd left it, Megan's name lighting up the screen. And for the first time since I found out what she and Tyler had planned, I actually smiled. I let it ring a while, 6 rings, to be exact. I figured a little waiting wouldn't kill her. Let her chew on why her grateful old dad wasn't falling over himself to answer. I poured a glass of water, took one deep, steadying breath, and finally picked up. "Dad." "There you are," she chirped, her voice sugary enough to rot teeth. "I was starting to get worried when you didn't answer earlier." "Sorry, sweetheart. Was out running a few errands." I kept my tone warm and harmless, like some kindly old grandpa in a rocking chair. "How's Phoenix treating you?" "Oh, you know how these business conferences are," she said, breezy as ever. "But listen, I've got the most wonderful news." She paused, probably picturing me leaning forward in suspense. "Tyler and I have been planning something very special for you." My grip on the phone tightened until my knuckles went pale. "We want to treat you to a vacation," she went on. "You've been through so much since Mom passed, you deserve a little rest and relaxation." There it was again, that fake compassion I now recognized as pure manipulation. "There's this gorgeous place we found," she continued. "It's like a resort, but with medical staff on hand, you know, just in case you need anything." A resort with medical staff. My jaw clenched so tight I was afraid it might crack. "That sounds lovely, sweetheart. Really, you didn't need to go to all that trouble for me." "Nonsense. Your family," she said brightly. And then I heard Tyler's voice chiming in from the background. They had me on speaker. "We've already made all the arrangements," he said, casual as if they were booking a dinner reservation. "When were you thinking?" I asked, though I already knew they wanted me out of the picture before they got back home. "Well," Megan said, "we'll be back next Friday. We were hoping you could be ready by then, just pack some clothes and personal things, you know, the essentials." The essentials. Not the photo albums Susan had pieced together with such care. Not the hand-built furniture I'd spent winter nights perfecting. Just whatever would fit in a suitcase for the old man they were planning to park somewhere out of sight. "Actually, Megan," I said, keeping my voice steady, "I've got a surprise for you, too, when you get back." Her tone jumped up an octave. "Oh, Dad, what kind of surprise?" I could tell she was already imagining I'd signed something to make their little scheme easier. I stepped over to the bay window I'd built for Susan, looking out at the garden she'd planted, the porch swing where we'd once planned our future in the warm twilight. "It's something I've been working on since our last conversation," I said. "I think you'll be very surprised." "You're so sweet, Dad." "We'll talk about everything when we get home, okay? Get some rest, we'll handle the rest." "Sweet." She called me sweet while sharpening the knife. "I will, sweetheart. Love you." "Love you too, Dad. See you Friday." When the call ended, my hands were steadier than they'd been in weeks. I set the phone down, went straight to my office, and opened the laptop. The glow of the screen felt almost like a challenge. My fingers hovered for just a second before typing, "Real Estate Agents Denver." The search results popped up like ammunition in a war I'd finally decided to fight. Old habits kicked in. 25 years as a construction engineer had taught me to research every detail before moving forward. Tonight, that discipline was going to be used for something entirely different. I scrolled through agent profiles, weighing their sales history and reading client reviews like I used to compare steel suppliers. Cherry Hills. Highlands Ranch. University Hills. The kinds of neighborhoods where homes sold for the kind of money Megan and Tyler were already counting in their dreams. One name kept rising to the top, Kevin Harris. 43 years old. Known for quick sales. Average time from listing to closing, 18 days. His headshot showed a man with a confident smile and sharp, alert eyes. Review after review told the same story, sold in 6 days. Cash offer in 48 hours. No hassle, smooth closing. I stared at his phone number. This was the moment, the first domino in a chain I couldn't stop once it started. I glanced at the photo of Susan on my desk. I could almost hear her voice, "Jack, are you sure?" I was. God help me, I was more certain about this than anything since we buried her. I dialed. Kevin Harris, Harris Real Estate. How can I help you? Mr. Harris, my name's Jack Thompson. I'm looking to sell my house fast. How quickly can these things really happen? That depends on the property, he said. But with the right price and a motivated cash buyer, I've closed in 11 days. 11 days? My heart thudded hard in my chest. Absolutely. Denver's market is red hot, especially for well-kept houses in established neighborhoods. Can you tell me a little about yours? I looked around the kitchen, trying to see it through a stranger's eyes. 2 stories, 3,400 square feet, built in '99, Cherry Creek area. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. Original owner. I've kept it in excellent shape, did a lot of the work myself. His voice sharpened with interest. That's exactly the kind of property my investors are chasing right now. Well-maintained, original owner, prime location, those are gold. Want me to come by for an assessment? How soon could you make it? I could be there this afternoon. Say 4 o'clock. I checked the clock. Just past noon. 4 works fine. Let me give you the address. After hanging up, the silence in the kitchen felt heavier than before. In 3 hours, a stranger would walk through the home Susan and I had built, putting a dollar sign on every memory. I spent the next 2 hours cleaning like Susan was still here to inspect my work, dusting the bay window, fluffing pillows, polishing surfaces until they gleamed. Only this time, it wasn't for company. This was preparation for an execution. At exactly 4 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I straightened my shirt, inhaling the faint lavender from Susan's old sachets still tucked away in the linen closet, and walked toward the front door. My hand trembled as it wrapped around the brass knob I'd installed myself 15 years ago. Whatever waited beyond this door would decide my fate, salvation or ruin. I turned the handle. Kevin Harris looked just like his profile photo, professional yet approachable, early 40s, the kind of man who exuded the easy confidence of someone who'd closed countless deals. A leather portfolio was tucked under one arm, a tablet in his other hand. The moment he stepped inside, his eyes went wide. Wow! He stopped in the entryway, gaze drifting from the crown molding I'd installed by hand to the oak floors Susan and I had picked together. Mr. Thompson, this is exactly what I was hoping for. I watched him take it all in, the way afternoon light poured through Susan's bay window, the seamless flow from living room to dining room I'd created by tearing out a load-bearing wall and installing a beam myself. You weren't kidding about maintenance, he said, pulling out his tablet and snapping photos. Original hardwoods throughout, I told him. Installed them in 2001, 3/4-inch solid oak. Susan wanted something that would last. I slipped naturally into the rhythm of talking about my work, pride creeping in despite the circumstances. At the kitchen, Kevin stopped, running his hand along the granite countertop. Custom? Every inch, I said. Susan picked it. Said the gold veining reminded her of sunlight. Took me 3 weekends to get the measurements perfect. His notes came quickly, his inspections methodical. Mr. Thompson, in 15 years of doing this, I rarely see a property this well kept. I'm an engineer. Or. I replied. Build it right the first time. It must have shown, because he just nodded in approval. We walked the open floor plan. I showed him the built-ins framing the fireplace, the bay windows Susan wanted for her reading nook. I could still picture her there with a mystery novel and her tea. Finally, Kevin pulled up comparable sales on his tablet. Similar homes here have been selling between $850,000 and $920,000, he said. Given your home's condition and custom features, I'd list at $960,000. That'll move it quickly while getting you top dollar. $960,000. Higher than Megan and Tyler's whispered estimates in their ugly little conversation. That much? Mr. Thompson, you're sitting on a gold mine. I have an investment group looking for exactly this type of property, cash buyers. No financing, no repairs, no drawn-out negotiations. They can close in 10 business days. 10. Megan and Tyler would be back in 8, expecting to find me compliant, ready to be shipped off to their retirement resort. What's the catch? No catch, Kevin said easily. Cash means no loan delays, no appraisal surprises. And frankly, your home's in better shape than most new builds I see. He explained the standard contract, 30 days to move after closing, more if I needed it. I thought of Megan's syrupy, sweet voice plotting to strip me of my independence, Tyler's cold calculations, Susan's warning not to be too trusting. Let's do it, I said. For a moment, Kevin's professional calm broke into genuine excitement. He called the investors immediately, describing my property like it was buried treasure, Cherry Creek, original owner, immaculate, custom features everywhere. They want to move forward. I'll have contracts ready by tomorrow. The sun set through Susan's bay window, painting the room gold. For the first time since that call from Megan, I felt something I'd lost, control. How's 9 a.m.? He asked. Perfect. After he left, I stood alone in the house that had been my life for 25 years. The evening light turned everything into a photograph of a past I was ready to walk away from, not with sorrow, but with anticipation. The next morning, Kevin arrived with contracts, a notary, and coffee. I read every line with the precision of a man who once checked blueprints for a living. Sale price, $960,000. Cash purchase, closing date, 10 business days from signing. The notary, a kind-eyed woman, guided me through each signature. Minimal contingencies, just the title search and a final walkthrough, and I could remain in the house for 30 days after closing if I needed. Correct, Mr. Thompson. Most sellers prefer to move sooner, for peace of mind. Peace of mind. I almost laughed. The only peace of mind I'd have would come from seeing Megan and Tyler's faces when they realized the burden they thought they controlled had slipped right through their fingers. I signed, steady hands, and just like that, the wheels were in motion. The first 3 days blurred together, paperwork, inspections, the title company digging through decades of records. Investors cruised toward the house, polite but impressed. Your father-in-law really knew what he was doing, one commented to their heir, assuming I was already gone. These floors, this electrical work, all top quality. Days 4 through 6, I became a man on a secret mission. I scoured apartments online, searching for something small, comfortable, and mine, a fresh start with nearly $900,000 in the bank. I found a place in Highlands, a senior community with golf courses, a clubhouse, the kind of life Susan and I had once whispered about for our golden years. I called storage facilities, planning which of Susan's things to take, her jewelry box, photo albums, the essentials of our life together. By days 7 through 9, I felt a confidence I hadn't known in years. Each morning, I woke one step closer to freedom, one step closer to showing Megan that her helpless old father was sharper than she'd ever imagined. Mrs. Walker from next door noticed the activity. Inspectors? She asked. Just some work, I said, hating the half-truth but knowing the full story would reach the neighborhood too soon. On day 8, Kevin called. Everything's on track for tomorrow's closing. Buyers are thrilled with inspection results. Wire transfer will complete the same day. Funds will be available immediately. That night, I packed a single suitcase with clothes and personal items, not because I was moving yet, but to be ready for anything. I looked at Susan's photo on the dresser. "I hope you understand what I'm doing," I whispered. Friday morning dawned bright, clear, the kind of spring day Susan loved most. I dressed in my navy suit, the one she bought for Megan's college graduation. The title company office hummed with professional efficiency. Buyers were represented by a sharp attorney who double-checked every document. Kevin moved like a conductor guiding an orchestra, sign here, initial there. Each signature cut a chain, transferring the deed, confirming the settlement, and finalizing the fact that 1247, Maple Street no longer belonged to Jack Thompson. The wire transfer confirmation blinked at me, $960,000 minus closing costs. More than I'd ever seen in one place. More than Megan and Tyler had dreamed their burden could access. Shaking hands all around, the transaction complete, Kevin walked me to my truck. "Sometimes a fresh start is exactly what we need, Mr. Thompson." Driving home through neighborhoods I'd known for 25 years, the school where Megan learned to read, the park Susan and I walked every Sunday, I felt liberation, not nostalgia. I sat in my driveway, keys heavy in my palm. Tomorrow, the new owners would take possession. Megan and Tyler were due back in 3 days. They'd expect their compliant, manageable father waiting to be shipped off. Instead, they'd find an empty house and a lesson they wouldn't forget. I climbed out, walked toward the door, and reached for my phone. Next step, locks. Time enough to complete what I'd started. I parked at Starbucks on Fax Avenue, hands steady, and dialed a 24-hour locksmith. AAA emergency locksmith, Eddie speaking. "I need all door locks changed today. Urgent. Time frame. As soon as possible. Cash. 2 hours." Back at the house, I waited in my truck, watching Mrs. Walker water her garden. Eddie arrived, a weathered man in his 50s, van full of tools. "Security issue, sir. New ownership situation. Better safe than sorry." He nodded, understanding without question, and began removing the brass locks I'd installed 15 years ago, the ones Susan had picked to match our door knocker. "These are quality locks," Eddie said. "I know," I replied. "I like things done right." The new locks were silver, modern, mechanical in their click. Eddie handed me 3 sets of keys, front, back, garage. $555 in cash, no paper trail. I stood in my empty house, staring at 25 years of life condensed into what I could carry. The hardest part had begun, packing a lifetime into a suitcase and preparing for a new chapter on my own terms. I packed Susan's jewelry box into my suitcase first, along with our wedding photos and the novel she'd been reading when she passed. Her bookmark still rested on page 247. In went my engineering certificates, our essential documents, and Susan's favorite cookbook, notes scribbled in the margins. I left nearly everything else behind, the furniture that held our memories, the photo albums tracking Megan's childhood, and Susan's clothes still hanging in the closet, faintly scented with her perfume. While packing, I called Broadway Apartments, explaining I needed a furnished one-bedroom right away. "We have a lovely unit ready for immediate occupancy," Mrs. Parker, the property manager, told me. "Month-to-month lease. Perfect." Flexibility was exactly what I needed. An hour later, I met Mrs. Parker at the apartment complex. It was modest but clean, a building for seniors with well-kept grounds and a community center. The one-bedroom unit was simple but comfortable, fully furnished, enough to start over. "Cash deposit is fine, Mr. Thompson." "When would you like to move in?" she asked. "Tonight," I said. Her eyebrows lifted slightly, but she didn't press. I signed the lease and handed over nearly $3,000 for the first month and deposit, a sum that, just 2 weeks ago, would have felt impossible to spend so casually. As I loaded my car in the gathering dusk, I noticed Mrs. Walker peering from her window. She waved, and I felt the weight of every relationship I was cutting off, every connection Megan and Tyler had forced me to sever. I walked through the empty house one last time, my footsteps echoing strangely in spaces that no longer felt like mine. The kitchen where Susan taught Megan to bake Christmas cookies. The living room where we'd watched Megan unwrap gifts on Christmas morning. Our bedroom, where Susan had taken her last breath as I held her hand. "I'm sorry, honey," I whispered to her memory. "You'd understand," I thought. "You always said I was too generous for my own good." I locked the new locks and drove away from Maple Street, possibly for the last time, the rearview mirror filled with the life I was leaving behind. By the time I reached Sunset Manor, the sun was setting. My car was packed with the essentials, and I struggled with the unfamiliar keys to enter my new front door. Inside, I dropped my suitcase and immediately reached for my phone. One last call remained, one piece of the puzzle to deliver a surprise to Megan and Tyler. The apartment felt like a sterile motel room, functional but soulless, furnished generically with the lingering scent of industrial carpet cleaner. I placed Susan's photo on the nightstand and held my phone, considering which bank could best protect nearly $900,000 from the people who thought it was theirs by right. I opened my laptop on the small dining table and started researching banks that specialized in large deposits. Colorado Community Bank caught my eye. Smaller than the big chains, with a reputation for personal service and discretion, exactly what I needed. I called their private banking division. "This is David Morrison." "Mr. Morrison, my name is Jack Thompson. I need to open an account for a substantial deposit, about $960,000. A brief pause on the other end suggested he was recalculating his day. "We'd be delighted to work with you, Mr. Thompson. When would you like a consultation?" "Monday morning, 9 a.m. "Perfect. I'll have everything ready." The weekend stretched before me like uncharted territory. I'd never lived anywhere but the house Susan and I built together. This tiny apartment felt like exile, but it was my choice, not theirs. Saturday, I made coffee in the unfamiliar kitchenette and unpacked methodically. Susan's jewelry box on the dresser, my awards on the bookshelf, our wedding photo by the bed, where I would sleep alone in a space that had never known her presence. I drove to the grocery store and bought meals for one, simple, nothing that required the kind of cooking Susan had loved. At the checkout, a young man with kind eyes asked if I was new to the area. "Just moved in," I said. "Starting fresh." Sunday morning, I found a coffee shop called Brews and Views, just 3 blocks from my apartment. The barista, a young woman named Sarah with purple streaks in her hair, brewed strong coffee the way I liked it. "You're new around here," she said, friendly but not prying. "Retired engineer," I replied. "Looking for a quieter life." "Then you picked the right neighborhood. Most of our customers are pretty mellow." I sat by the window, sipping my coffee, watching people walk dogs and push strollers, the kind of ordinary Saturday morning Susan and I had cherished. But instead of sadness, I felt something I hadn't felt in months, anticipation. Monday morning, I dressed in my best suit and drove to Colorado Community Bank. David Morrison was younger than I expected, maybe 45, with the professional warmth that comes from handling other people's life savings. "Mr. Thompson, what brings you here?" he asked. "I sold my house. I need a fresh start with a bank that values personal relationships over transaction fees." David nodded, understanding. "We specialize in that. Tell me what you need." I explained carefully, a widower who sold his family home, seeking secure and accessible banking. "I'll need to wire the funds from my previous bank," I said. "No problem," he replied. "We can initiate the transfer today, and the funds should clear by Wednesday." David prepared the paperwork efficiently, online banking, debit card, checkbook, all standard. Given the amount, he recommended a premium account for extra security. I signed the documents, becoming an official client of Colorado Community Bank, customer number 847293, with nearly $900,000 safely out of Megan and Tyler's reach. Tuesday and Wednesday passed in the quiet rhythm of my new life. Morning coffee at Brews and Views, Sarah remembered my order and asked about my weekend. Afternoon walks through the neighborhood, discovering a small park with benches where retirees fed pigeons and read newspapers. Wednesday afternoon, I got the call I'd been waiting for. "Mr. Thompson, your funds have cleared successfully. Your account is fully active," David Morrison said. I hung up and looked around my small apartment, Susan's photo on the nightstand, the modest life I was piecing together from the wreckage of my daughter's betrayal. For the first time since Susan died, I felt truly in control of my own life. That evening, I sat in my lone chair, not Susan's reading chair, not the recliner where I'd first heard Megan's betrayal, just a plain chair in a plain room that belonged entirely to me. I opened my laptop and typed mini surveillance cameras into the search bar. My fingers hovered, knowing that what I was about to order would capture the final act of my revenge. Megan and Tyler would be returning Friday, expecting their complacent, grateful old father. Instead, they were about to find that their burden had become their worst nightmare. The search results displayed dozens of options, from obvious security cameras to devices cleverly disguised as everyday objects. After half an hour, I found exactly what I needed, a wireless mini camera hidden inside a phone charger. Perfect specs for my engineering mind: Wi-Fi with smartphone app control, motion-activated recording, 12-hour battery life, and crystal-clear video. Most importantly, it could stream live footage straight to my phone from anywhere in the world. I ordered it with expedited shipping, paying an extra $40 to guarantee Thursday delivery. The total came to $149, an amount that would have made me pause just 2 weeks ago, but barely registered now. With the camera on its way, I turned to the note that would explain everything to Megan and Tyler when they discovered their keys didn't work. The first draft was too raw, fueled by anger. The second was too cold, missing the human heartbreak of their betrayal. By the third, I had it, dignified yet devastating, loving but final. I wrote it in the careful, precise handwriting Susan had always admired. Dear Megan and Tyler. If you're reading this, it means my plan worked perfectly. I overheard your conversation about putting me in a nursing home because I was becoming a burden. I heard you calculating the profit from selling my house. That house has been sold for $960,000 in cash. The money is now safely in my new bank account, where it will remain. I've moved to a place where I am appreciated, not tolerated. Don't worry about me, worry about your own housing situation. Your belongings have been packed and stored at Denver Moving and Storage on Fax Avenue. You have 30 days to claim them before storage fees begin. I gave you everything I had for 42 years, and you repaid me by planning to warehouse me so you could steal my life's work. I hope the lesson was worth the cost. Love, Dad. Thursday morning, the FedEx truck delivered the small box with my surveillance equipment. I spent an hour in the kitchen testing the device and learning the app. The video was sharp, the audio clear enough to catch whispers. Thursday afternoon, I drove to my former house one last time. I used the garage opener I'd never given Megan and Tyler and parked inside to avoid questions from neighbors. My hands trembled slightly as I approached the front door with my new keys. The house still smelled like home, Susan's lavender sachets, lemon oil on the furniture, the faint trace of 25 years of family dinners. But there were additions that made my chest tighten: Megan and Tyler's suitcases by the stairs, their mail scattered across the kitchen counter, evidence they'd been treating my home like a personal storage unit. I positioned the camera charger by the front door outlet, angling it perfectly to capture anyone entering. The live feed on my phone showed the whole entryway, including the spot where I planned to place the note. I tested the motion detection, walking in and out until I was sure every return would be recorded. Then I taped the envelope inside the front door, eye level, impossible to miss. Standing in the living room one final time, I touched the mantel where Susan's photo had rested for 23 years. The new owners would place their own pictures there, create their own memories in the rooms filled with our love. "It's done, sweetheart," I whispered. "Justice served." I locked the door, checked the camera feed one last time from my car, and drove back to my apartment. Motion detection armed, battery full, phone ready to alert me the moment Megan and Tyler discovered their keys wouldn't work. Back in my apartment, I sat with my phone in hand, watching the empty doorway through the camera app. Timestamp, 6:30 p.m. Thursday. Tomorrow, Megan and Tyler would return from their trip, probably still scheming about nursing homes and counting my money in their heads. They had no idea their grateful old father had become their worst nightmare. Friday morning, I woke buzzing with anticipation, the feeling of a man about to witness justice after years of injustice. My coffee tasted better than it had in months, and the small apartment felt less confining as I settled into my chair, phone in hand, watching the empty doorway. 4:30 p.m. They should be here soon. I knew their routines by heart. Megan insisted on leaving Phoenix by noon to avoid traffic. Tyler drove exactly the speed limit. They'd be pulling into my driveway within the hour. I glanced at Susan's photo on the nightstand. "I hope you understand, honey. They left me no choice." 5:15 p.m. My phone buzzed with motion detection. A black SUV, Tyler's car, pulled into the driveway. My heart pounded as I watched. Megan stepped out first, stretching after the long drive. Tyler followed, retrieving suitcases from the back. They moved with the casual confidence of people coming home to claim what they thought was theirs. Megan fished her keys from her purse, while Tyler set the luggage down. Megan slid her key into the lock I'd changed just the day before. It wouldn't turn. She frowned, inspecting her key ring, and tried again, jiggling it with mounting frustration. "That's weird," she muttered, her voice coming through my phone speaker. Tyler stepped closer, his expression shifting from tired to uneasy. "Let me try the back door." I watched him disappear around the side while Megan continued struggling with the front lock. 3 minutes later, Tyler returned, his face dark with alarm. "Back doors are locked too, and the garage opener isn't working." His voice carried the edge of panic I'd been waiting to hear. "Someone changed these locks," he said. "What? That's impossible. Dad doesn't even know a locksmith," Megan exclaimed. Tyler studied the front door closely, his financial advisor mind recognizing the signs. "These are brand new locks. This isn't an accident." Megan's hands trembled as she pulled out her phone. "I'm calling Dad." I watched her dial my old landline, the one I disconnected 3 days ago. After several rings, her face twisted in confusion. No answer. It doesn't even go to voicemail. "Try his cell phone," Tyler suggested. "He doesn't have one, remember? We talked about getting him one for emergencies," Megan said, her voice cracking with the first hint of real fear. Tyler moved to examine the windows, his earlier confidence evaporating completely. "Here, this one's unlocked. I can boost you up." I watched Megan climb through the deliberately unlatched kitchen window, her business suit catching on the frame. Moments later, the front door opened from inside. Tyler entered with their suitcases, and both froze when they saw the white envelope taped at eye level. Megan's hand shook as she pulled the envelope down, my careful script spelling out both their names. I leaned forward in my chair, phone clutched in both hands, as she broke the seal. Her eyes scanned my words while Tyler read over her shoulder. I watched their expressions shift, confusion, then shock, then sheer disbelief, finally horror. "He sold the house." Megan nearly screamed. "How could he do this to us?" Tyler snatched the note from her hands, reading it again as if the words might somehow change. "That manipulative old bastard, he was playing us the whole time, $960,000. Megan's tears streaked her carefully applied makeup. "He kept it all. That money was supposed to be our future. Your future. Tyler snapped, his devoted son-in-law mask finally slipping. This is your father, Megan. You should have handled this better. My fault. Megan spun on him, years of resentment boiling over. You're the one who said he was a burden. You're the one who pushed for the nursing home. Well, he was a burden. Look at what he's done to us. Tyler gestured wildly around the room that was no longer theirs. We're homeless. Our lease expires next week. The irony wasn't lost on me, they were arguing about being homeless in my living room, just as they had planned to make me homeless in a nursing home. Call a lawyer, Megan said, desperation in her voice. There has to be something we can do. He can't just sell the house without telling us. With what money? Tyler replied, dripping contempt. In case you forgot, I lost my job 6 months ago, and your marketing salary barely covers our car payments. Then get another job. Where do you think firms are lining up to hire advisors who got fired for questionable transactions? I watched my daughter's face crumble as the reality hit, no house, no inheritance, no savings, and Tyler's career finally exposed as precarious. How could he be so cruel, she whispered. The same way you were cruel when you called him a burden and tried to warehouse him, Tyler shot back. The old man was smarter than both of us. Through the phone screen, I watched them collapse into my old furniture that would be gone tomorrow with the new owners. Megan buried her face in her hands while Tyler stared at the note, finally grasping he had been outplayed. I turned off the camera feed. Enough. I walked to my tiny kitchen and opened a bottle of Susan's favorite wine, a 2018 Bordeaux we'd saved for a special occasion that never came. I poured a glass and raised it to her photo. To you, my love. Justice served. The wine tasted like victory. They had learned the hard way what happens when you bite the hand that fed you. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, probably Megan trying some new way to reach me. I deleted it unread and powered the phone down completely. I moved to the window and looked out at the Denver skyline, golden in the setting sun. Somewhere across the city, my daughter and her husband were facing the consequences of their cruelty. Somewhere in my old house, they were learning that their burden had become their biggest problem. For the first time in 2 years, since Susan's death, I felt truly free. I was no longer anyone's burden. I was my own man, with my own money, my own choices, and my own future stretching ahead like an open road. Jack Thompson had left the building, and he wasn't coming back.